What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Malik Washington. How you all doing? Hope everybody is well. Praying for strength, understanding, knowledge, and wisdom in any and everything that you do in this life. Praying for fortune and also for you guys to be able to go out and have the tenacity to do whatever it is that you desire to do in this current life that we live and in this current epic that we reside in at this current juncture. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to dive right on into this topic. This is concerning something that a celebrity said not so long ago. I want to say that this was like last month, and it was during the VMA Awards. A lot of you, maybe some of you, or none of you at all, may have watched the VMA Awards. And there was a particular celebrity that we all know. She goes by the name of Lizzo. Y'all know who I'm talking about, so I ain't even got to be all formal about it. You know who I'm talking about, right? So apparently Lizzo, like every other successful black celebrity that's been coming out lately, talking all this nonsense about being oppressed and whatnot, particularly said something that stood out. She was telling people she was using her, you could say her fame to try to promote people to vote a certain type of way politically. Typically, we know that way is usually democratic in nature. But she basically talks about how just like she got an award for being a quote unquote good person, she was telling people in the audience that essentially they need to vote to change the laws that are oppressing them, right? When I hear black people talk about being oppressed, I don't know how I personally feel about that, because as in part a black man myself, I don't entirely agree with that notion about being oppressed, because to be oppressed requires there's a certain criteria that needs to be met when people are being so-called oppressed. And what Lizzo refers to, that's not oppression. To see you on stage, to be given an award for being a good person, whatever that entails, I don't even know the requirements to even get that type of reward. I never even heard of it up until this point, right? Which is very strange, uncanny to me. I've never seen nothing like it. But apparently there's a standard, right? But just like there's a standard for that, there's also a standard in terms of how one is being oppressed. Now, if you're talking about Jim Crow South, if you're talking about slavery from back in, starting from the 1610 going all the way up to 1863, okay, I can get what you're saying. That's oppression in and of itself. Oppression between 2000 and 2022, I don't see it. And the reason why I say that, ladies and gentlemen, is because there's a lot of us going around believing that, like Lizzo, we're oppressed. In my mind, I see nothing but success coming from a lot of black people, right? I see a lot of black people going to school. I see a lot of black people being able to vote. I see a lot of black people being able to become doctors and lawyers and accountants. Black people becoming engineers, although there's very few of them, but nonetheless, they exist. Black people becoming business owners. Black people being able to get grants and loans, even though at one point in time it was hard for them to be able to do that. And of course, due to racist views and redlining and things of that nature, things were complicated at one point in time, right? Black people did face things, obstacles, or shall I say, our ancestors, our grandmothers and grandfathers, they faced these issues as they were growing up, right? But nonetheless, even during that time and progressing unto now, in today's time, I see a lot of black people become successful and live in huge homes and make even more money than their average white counterpart, who is actually more poor. There are more poor white people than there are rich whites. right? And there are even black people who are even richer than some of those poor white people, even though we say white people benefited from slavery. They've benefited from their from their ancestors who were slave masters, in spite of the fact that not every single white person in Jim Crow South, in colonial Western USA back in those times, didn't even own slaves. Not everybody owned them. Only up to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 30% of white Southerners even owned slaves. And even then, majority of them were white Jewish people or families that had owned slaves. And some were, Irish or British and things of that nature, right? Nonetheless, we blame every single white person for apparently owning slaves, which I don't know where people are getting that from, but that's also due to the fact that a lot of people don't do a lot of research and they don't go and look these things up. Nonetheless, I see all of these accomplishments and feats that black people have done. And even through my public education, as well as private education at some point when I went into high school and college, I've learned that there were very monumental figures who did a lot of great things. A lot of black people who were extremely bold and made bold decisions in order to become some type of example of what you can do in this world, even when you have all these obstacles and these hindrances standing against you. Right? It takes boldness to be the first person to do open heart surgery. It takes boldness to invent traffic lights. It takes boldness to try to unite racist white people with black people who were once enslaved by some of them. It takes boldness to speak out against a lot of people who have supremacist and eugenicist ideals about how to destroy a race that you deem subservient to you. It takes boldness to do any of that. It takes boldness to be the first to pilot a rocket ship for NASA. It takes boldness for all of these different things. It takes boldness to create to create microchips for the very entertainment consoles that you all have today. It takes all of the God-given ability that you have as a person of color in this country to be able to do all these great things. Yet you're somehow, some way, in every single time when there's an election around, you're constantly being told about how oppressed you are. This isn't about being a conservative, because I'm not conservative. I'm certainly not liberal, although I used to be liberal and didn't even know what it meant to be a liberal. But I had very liberal talking points at one point, right? And didn't even know what the title was at that given time. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, if we are that oppressed, should not white people have us still in slavery right now? On top of that, should we even be able to record ourselves on these phones, the technology? Should we even be able to partake in a lot of the economic activities and cultures and traditional norms that we currently participate in today's world? Would you be able to go to school? Would you still be able to read and write? Would you even be able to understand the difference between the truths and the lies that white people throw at you on a daily basis? Would you be able to do those things? And this is nothing against white people, but these are questions I want to ask black people out there who persistently tell themselves that we've been oppressed by the white man. The white man oppressed your ancestors. The white man, in my experience, has not oppressed me. The white man may have oppressed my grandmother or grandfather at one point in time. Have they oppressed me though? No. Have their descendants messed with me? No. Have they picked on my family? No. And in spite of the fact that some of my family members do have some type of prejudice towards white people, and that's their prerogative, I don't really give a shit. Nonetheless, I choose not to, well, quite frankly, say that they're oppressing me when I clearly went to school. I got a bachelor's degree. I got into a great job. I've done great things over the course of time. No white person has come and oppressed me. Not to mention, I have people in my family that have done great things. They continue to do great things. Grandparents, even amidst of Jim Crow, and even after they got out of slavery, did great things. From the documents I've read concerning them. My point is that we were a people that when things got tough, we attempted to survive it, right? And no doubt, when you're in this system, you should vote for the things that you care about. Otherwise, it goes out the window, and quite frankly, your voice is not heard. I used to be one of those people that did not vote because I believed that my vote didn't matter. Kind of to a degree, I still don't think it matters, because it seems like even when you vote, although your voice might get heard in the sense that you participated, it doesn't get heard in the fact that you got what you wanted. Being able to have the right to vote doesn't entitle you to the ownership of the election. So in other words, even though I'm voting for the person I want to vote for, guess what? I'm not going to get the person that I want. And irregardless of my vote, either I am going to put someone in power who has the ability to either be destructive or do great things. One way or another, consequently, I don't know how my vote is going to go. But I'm going to take that risk, and I'm going to take that gamble, because if I believe that candidate has the same interest as I do, whether if they're black or white in difference, bring them on in. Let's see what they're capable of. We have the power to do that. We have the power to do that. Perhaps it might be considered a perception of power, a perception of the ability to choose. But at the end of the day, there was a point in time where black people could not choose to do that either. And yet and still, we are still talking about how we're oppressed. And I'm looking at a woman who is up there on that stage, who is a multi-millionaire, who is talented as far as playing the flute is concerned. All that other ratchet ghetto shit that she does, I'm not really concerned about that. But when we're talking about a woman who actually is up there right now amongst blacks, whites, Hispanics, Native Americans, Indians, Arabics, whoever was at the VMA that day, the fact that you can sit there in front of everybody, and even some people will agree with her at the end